Do you know how to use LinkedIn to project yourself as a leader? I'm Linda Katz-Wilner, founder of Successfully Speaking. I help leaders and aspiring leaders communicate with confidence, clarity, and credibility. I know my guest today can speak about that extensively. I look forward to interviewing Colleen McKenna. Colleen is the principal of Intero Advisory. We met many years ago, and we've presented together at conferences and interviewed each other. Colleen isn't just an expert in LinkedIn, although that's how I think of her, but she works with branding and sales. The other part is that she's an author, and she wrote the book, It's Business, Not Social. She's a speaker, blogger, trainer, and coach. I've even spoken to Colleen about my LinkedIn profile. She has empowered professionals worldwide with practical and personalized training since 2011. Welcome, Colleen. It's such a pleasure to have you here today.
It's great to be with you, Linda. Always fun. We always have
Yes,
great conversations.
always have fun. And Colleen, I know you have your background has some other skill sets, or maybe not different skill sets. It may be what brought you to where you are today, but tell us a little bit about where you started and how you got to be the principal of Intero Advisory.
Right. I came out of sales and I've always been in sales, business development, marketing. They're so interconnected and spent a lot of time in really mature industries like printing and publishing. And early, probably 2009, I started to really, I'd been on LinkedIn for about 5 years at that point, but really started to take a look at LinkedIn as a way to help new and young professionals build a network quickly. And saw success with that, saw that they were able to actually build these networks, trying to figure out how to create new opportunities on the sales side and outperform their peers who had far more experience. And so when I started Intero Advisory in 2011, I quickly realized that LinkedIn was finally hitting its tipping point. It seems crazy to think about. That was, over 13 years ago, right? But people were starting to really try to figure out, is this a thing? How does this work? And I started doing talks about it and networking, and I was really curating my network in a certain way and realized that I could help people get to where they needed to go on LinkedIn faster, which means how to show up better, how to write a better profile, how to build a strategic network, not a random network, and then how to engage on the platform to uncover new business opportunities and career opportunities, certainly.
And that's actually when I first met you, speaking to one of my groups. And so it wasn't just about how do you manage all the different parts of LinkedIn, but how do you show up?
Right.
So it wasn't just technical, it was more about showing up, which is why I wanted to speak to you today about that. And I know you already mentioned, you can highlight your leadership skills or make you stand out through your profile. I'm very well aware of that because we do see so many different types of profiles on LinkedIn. How can you speak, sound, and look like a leader in your written communication? Can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is so important. I think that leaders, many leaders, underestimate and undervalue the importance of how they show up on a platform like LinkedIn. Because even CEOs who say, you know what, I don't really use it. I'm like, how might you use it? Oh, well, I actually do use it by vetting everybody. I don't go into a meeting or pick up a call or join a Zoom or a Teams until I've looked at everybody's profile. I'm like, so people are actually using it. So people are vetting, they're vetting those leaders and companies and organizations if they want to work there, if they want to hire them, if they want to partner with them, if they want to invest in them. We have one client where we've worked with the entire leadership team because they were about to embark on a large financial transaction. And they knew that investors would be looking at how they showed up on LinkedIn. So it's super important to understand what others see you, but know that that's a place where you actually can control and shape the narrative.
You just said something very interesting that I thought about because I think of LinkedIn as setting up my profile so people see me as a leader. But when you meet with people for the first time, you should be looking at their profile. I've been in situations where people are talking to me and it was clear that they never looked me up.
Ever.
And that reflects on how they're approaching me. And it makes me think, do they really want to meet me, or are they adding just another person to their list? And do they know what my level of experience is?
Yeah, you can really tell this really comes out in what I call pseudo personalized connection requests, which I just
Mhm,
did a post about. And, I'd like to learn more about you, or I see your
mhm.
impressive background. I think I can help you with this. Well, that's actually what I do. So thanks. That's the automation, right? And this is sort of what worries people about platforms and LinkedIn, is that what's real and what's not. And we're going to have to really navigate these waters more carefully and strategically because of AI and so much information that we really need to step back and just take a closer look at. So those automated messages, really, they stand out in such a negative way.
Mhm,
And and that's why I tell all of our clients we don't believe in the automation, right?
mhm.
Because that really does not best reflect you as a business professional.
Yeah, and I don't know if this is automated, but I have seen this lately, at least once or twice a week, where the same person will like at least 3 of my posts that were out there. And then within a day, they want to connect with me
Mhm.
and they have something to sell to me. It's obvious to me.
Yeah.
And it's happening more and more frequently. So I think this goes back to, the fact that you said it's not a social I mean, there is some aspect of
Sure.
social, but
Mhm.
it's not a social platform, it's a business platform. But then the question is, what type of business? Is it somebody finding all the people they can sell their projects to or their services to? Or is it a connection to do business and create relationships? And I think I know your answer. But I think there is that confusion of how people should be approaching
Oh
LinkedIn.
yeah. Absolutely, absolutely. It's all of those things. And I think what leaders need to start to really think about is, how do they see the platform? How are they going to use the platform? And many of them have a bias, as they should, because they get just spammed with all of these
Mhm,
connection requests and emails day after day after day. I get it. LinkedIn gets it. LinkedIn understands that's diluted the member experience, and they're actually trying to embed certain new features that slows that down, that decreases that noise. If you look in your messaging center, you now see it's divided into tabs. And many of those in-mails, which are really just sales
mhm,
messages, are now separated from focused, right? So LinkedIn's AI is now saying, hey, you know what? This feels like there's really no connection to this person.
mhm,
We're not going to put it in their main messaging center. So, as all of these platforms get more and more sophisticated, leaders really need to put guardrails and think about it and understand how these platforms work so that they can optimize for them for their own business. Because I do laugh. I do say to some CEOs, I know you don't like this, and all of these messages kind of make you a little bit crazy and you don't want to be on LinkedIn because of it. However, you're asking your salespeople to do the same. And this was the same message I was talking about and conversation I was having about 15 years ago about cold calls,
mm,
right? Right? Nobody wants to answer a cold call, but you still want your salespeople. We do have to do business, right? We have
mhm,
to find ways to connect and do business so that our businesses grow. It's all about whether you have a strategy or you just have this random approach. And my recommendation is that every business and every organization, nonprofit, member-based organizations, have a strategy.
mm.
And leadership, when leadership buys into that strategy, it really works much better. When leaders don't pay much attention to what can happen on LinkedIn and say it's not their role, then most of the team just does their own thing.
Right. So in order to speak, sound, and look like a leader, you also have to walk the talk so that people will follow.
Mhm.
That certainly
Absolutely.
makes sense. We always talk about, or we always see very personal posts on LinkedIn, and very often we say, "Well, wait a minute, this isn't Facebook."
Mhm.
From the eyes, if you're looking at leaders, I'm not just talking about general people on
Mhm.
LinkedIn, but we all are leaders in some way, or
Sure,
we aspire to be leaders.
sure.
What are your thoughts on the types of posts we should be making on LinkedIn, on that particular platform?
Yeah, this is such an interesting conversation. I am a LinkedIn purist, so I like to see articles that educate and
Mhm,
inform, and I'm a big reader, so I like to take in a lot of information. So I do like posts and links to articles that are
mhm,
thought provoking. However, what I also know, people love to know about people. And I just saw a CEO post the other day about his new daughter that was just born.
mm,
And he had so much engagement on that post, right? But that's who he is. That is
mhm,
completely authentic to that person. Some of the best posts and greatest engagement that I've had on LinkedIn are those kind of personal posts
mm,
where I'm not revealing it, very personal things, but it's a look, a glimpse into my life,
mm,
into things that are happening in our world, things that I'm particularly passionate about personally. People like that. We are human beings before we're CEOs and VPs of
mhm,
sales and
mhm,
VPs of marketing. So we should recognize that. It kind of goes back to a nice balance, right? And that balance, where I'm usually coaching clients, is wow, we got a lot of posts here, and they're all pitching your business.
mhm,
That's P for pitching, right? It's all about you, and that becomes more of a monologue than anything. So
mhm,
let's
mhm.
talk about different things. Let's give people shout outs. Let's showcase something different. Only 20% of posts should be about the company, the product, the service, right? More
20%, 20.
20%.
Mhm,
And but culture, what's it like to work at your company? What are those core values? What's your mission? And I think that that's where, especially member-based organizations, nonprofits, uh, they have such a story they can tell because they are mission-based,
yes.
and there's so much they can work with there. So I don't mind those posts every once in a while. However, it's too personal, or if it becomes a platform where you're just going to rant, it does tend to turn off a portion of the audience.
And what about the sole proprietors? Because you're talking in a lot of sense about larger
Yeah.
businesses, but I'm a sole proprietor, so I think about that. And what about the sole proprietors who are always talking about the engagements that they have? Be it the speaking engagements or the flight that they're getting on to go to their speaking engagement. What are your thoughts about that? And I guess moderation is one of the most important things.
Yeah, so I think sometimes it makes sense. However, if that's all, it becomes what I would consider gratuitous content, right?
Mhm,
There's no depth to it.
mhm,
So again, I'd rather than hear about what you're going to talk about,
mhm,
um, something that you've added to your slide deck at the last minute because something in your area of expertise has changed, or
mhm,
you have a different thought about it, right?
mhm.
So again, how can you use that information? I am a LinkedIn purist, so I like to see articles that educate and
Mhm.
inform, and I'm a big reader, so I like taking a lot of person. Some of the best posts and greatest engagement that I've had on LinkedIn are those kind of personal posts
Mm,
where I'm not revealing it, very personal things, but it's a look, a glimpse into my life,
mm.
into things that are happening in our world, things that I'm particularly passionate about.
Artists who are always talking about the engagements that they have, be it the speaking engagements.
Gratuitous content, right?
Mhm,
There's no depth to it.
mhm,
So again, I'd rather than hear about what you're going to talk about,
mhm,
um, something that you've added to your slide deck at the last minute because something in your area of expertise has changed, or
Mhm,
you have a different thought about it, right?
mhm,
So again, how can you use that preparation time and showcase something that you're actually working on?
mhm, mhm, mhm. Know your audience.
Know
And
your
I
audience.
often think, how is that going to make somebody feel? That's more about Facebook, I think. But how does your post help people? Or is it going to make them more wary of you as a leader
Mhm,
and put yourself in their shoes to see how
mhm.
the tone of your post may come across?
Exactly, and I think that's a really important point. Know your audience, look at your network. So very often people will say, "I don't know what to post."
Mhm,
I'm like, "Well, the answer to that question is your network." So who's in your network?
mhm,
So I was recently talking to a senior leader, and they said, "I'm sharing all of our posts about all of our new positions." And so we looked at those positions, and I said, that's great that you're doing that, really helping the recruiters because I believe everybody's in business development. I believe everybody's a recruiter. However, your network is made up of other senior
mhm,
leaders at national companies. So you're putting, our content goes to where we have the most connectivity, right?
mhm,
So you're putting out those posts, you're sharing it, but it's not reaching those people who might apply for those
mm.
positions.
Interesting.
She was like, "Oh my gosh, I never even thought of that." Like,
Mhm,
so understanding, know your audience, but really know your audience, right?
mhm,
Know, like, download your first level connections out of LinkedIn. Look at that spreadsheet. Who are you currently connected to? Does that network make sense for your current business? I
mhm.
mean, leaders, move from industry to industry sometimes. And so they have to jumpstart that network because the new industry may not be who they're connected to and they need to be.
And I remember you saying that, keep checking that list and maybe eliminate people or move them into a
Mhm,
different area. Know who you need to
mhm.
reach.
Yeah.
I I know we can keep talking about this because you are such a wealth of information about LinkedIn. But I do want to ask you this question, which I always ask. And what do you think is an essential skill to help you speak, sound, and look like a leader? And of course, this is going to be more through LinkedIn and your writing skills.
Communicate clearly and effectively your value proposition, what you believe, and why why you're a good leader, right? Why anybody should follow you. But
Mhm.
I think that clear communication is important. Um, Always, we look at a lot of LinkedIn profiles of senior leaders, business owners, founders, solopreneurs, and a lot of times we have no idea what their business is. And
Mhm.
that's a missed opportunity.
Mhm. Mhm. Perfect opportunity to showcase who you are and how
Mhm,
you think.
mhm,
Yes.
mhm.
Colleen, how can people get in touch with you?
Well, certainly through LinkedIn, Colleen McKenna, Intero Advisory, through our website, interoadvisory.com. And my email is colleen@interoadvisory.com.
Colleen, thank you so much. And for those listening, please post any questions, comments, reach out to either of us. But anything you post, we both check LinkedIn a lot, so we will be able to respond to those questions. And thanks again, Colleen. You're always a wealth of information. I love
Thank you.
speaking with you, and it's great to have you here for this
Thank
interview.
you so much. Great to be with you.
Thank you.